Bright Tuty. Every student matters.
Hello dear students, welcome to another lecture. In this class, we are going to begin with Unit 14 of Class 12 Education Nagaland Board. And the chapter that we are going to begin is the measurement of central tendencies. Now this chapter involves more of practical than theory. We have in the past units talked about everything from learning to intelligence to personality, habit, individual differences, growth, development, and so on and so forth. In this chapter, we are going to learn what is the need for summarizing the data which is given to you. So to summarize the data in the form of a single number, why do we need that? How do we differentiate between the different methods of calculating the average of a data? Then how do we calculate the mean, median and mode? What do we derive or conclude out of the data for which we've calculated the mean, median, mode? How do we compare these central tendencies and also understand what is the most appropriate central tendency to calculate in some situation? Okay. Now, first of all, when we talk about data, we need a single measure which can give us some idea about the entire group or about the entire data that we have taken as a whole. So that is why we need to calculate the measures of central tendency. So the measures of central tendency give us an idea or give us one single number which represents the entire group. So we shall be learning about those central tendencies with the help of examples which are going to help us summarize the large set of data. It can be something related to the daily wages of the employees. It can be related to the number of houses built in a particular year, or the price of wheat, or the salary of something, population of something, the rainfall in some particular area, and so on and so forth. Now, these are all the topics, these are all the subjects that we make use of in everyday life, right? Everybody wants to know what is the average, temperature of Delhi during the summers. So, in order to calculate that average, we will have to make use of the central tendencies. If we have to calculate what is the most repeated number of something, we have to calculate the mode of that data. So this is how the central tendencies are going to enable us to calculate things which are of use to us in everyday life. Now, obviously, let's say after the test has been conducted, that what was the average score of the 40 students in the class? How are we going to do that? By calculating the mean of it. And what is this average score going to help the teacher with? So this average mean or the average score is going to, inform the teacher or make the teacher aware about the average performance of the students in the class. If let's say the test was of 20 marks and the average is coming out to be 15. So that means that, on average, maximum students have managed to score 15 out of 20, which is a fair score. While if the average comes out to be 5, this is an alarming situation for the teacher and she'll have to work harder on that topic, because the average score indicates that the students of the class have managed to score maximum 5 marks out of 20. So, in this way, the measures of central tendency is useful for us. So, we calculate mean, median, mode, which are the most common measures of central tendency. So, basically, a measure of central tendency is that value around which the other figures also correlate. Okay. Average, for example, stands for the entire group. It is going to represent the entire group. As I said, if we calculate the average marks, that means out of the entire class, the average marks are going to represent the, all the students. Now, according to Ross CC, measures of central tendency is the tendency of the scores to concentrate somewhere near the center. So these are those numbers, or measure of central tendency is that value which is going to tell you to concentrate somewhere around the number or the value that you have got. It is this value which is going to represent the entire distribution. So that number that we get is the representative of the entire data. Now, why do we need, the measures of central tendency? So we need the measures of central tendency because they are going to give us a glimpse, a microscopic view of a whole data. In order to interpret an entire data, rather than spending time on each of the number, on each of the value given, we can simply calculate a measure of central tendency, which will give us a bird's eye view of the entire data that is there on our screen. These devices help us to get how significant the data or the facts or the measurements given in the data is. They also tell us about the details. For example, when I gave you the reference to the marks, the average marks that the students calculated and how it was necessary for the teacher to know the average marks. So this is going to put forth a specific value around which your entire data is going to revolve. Now, according to Garrett, another psychologist, the value of measure of central tendency is twofold. It takes place in two stages. First, it tells you an average which represents all the scores made by the group. So first we derive the average score out of something, and it gives us a concise, a very short, precise description of how the entire group has performed, right? Second, it is going to help us to compare two or more groups together when we talk about performance, right? If now the teacher has seen that the average score out of 20 was 5 in that test, she did that topic again, and after a month when the test was conducted, now the average score increased to 18 out of 20. So this helped her compare that yes, the students are now clear with the topic. So one, you're going to get an information about the entire data that you've managed to calculate, and second, you'd be able to compare two or more groups together. Now, what are the characteristics of a good or an ideal measure of central tendency? First, a good central tendency should be defined in very rigid terms. There should not be any vague answers. There should be an accurate and exact answer that you get, and there has to be a reason behind the computation of that answer as well. It should be easy to understand as well as calculate. If we are spending hours and hours in calculating something, then that is not going to be of any use. It should be based on all the items in the data. Whatever items are there in your data, all those items need to be included when you are calculating central tendency. Its definition should be in the form of a mathematical formula. Now here, since we are talking about the computation of something, we are talking about numbers, calculation. So we need a mathematical formula which is going to state and accurately tell us how to compute something. So whatever we've calculated, it should be capable of further algebraic treatment. That means if I have calculated mean and if I want to move on to, let's say, the calculation of standard deviation, I should be able to do that. Okay. So it should have sampling stability. Sampling stability means that on the basis of the single number that you have derived, you should be able to get an idea about the entire group that was there in your study. I cannot consider each and everything in detail, right? If the group of students right now was 40, what if it was 100? I cannot calculate and keep on writing and everything for individual students. It is going to be a wastage of time. So I need to calculate the average score, and then whatever average score that I am getting, it is going to be a good measure of central tendency only when that average score will give me the clear idea of the entire class's average marks. And again, it should be useful for further statistical calculations. And now, according to Professor Bowley, measures of central tendency are those constants, are those numbers which are derived statistically, which are derived in numbers, by statisticians, because they want to comprehend, they want to understand the significance of the whole. So with the help of one number, the entire data is studied. What are the three measures of central tendency? We have mean, median, and mode. Now, what is mean? If you look at this diagram, be it symmetrical, or when we talk about the symmetrical distribution or the asymmetrical distribution. Symmetrical, as you can see, there is an evenness, and asymmetrical has got no evenness. Mean refers to the average of all the numbers. Median is the middle number in the list. And mode is the most frequent number. So this is how we can broadly define these three measures of central tendency. Mean refers to the average of all the numbers, be the data symmetrical or asymmetrical, does not matter. Median means the middle number in the list, and mode is that number which is repeated most frequently. Okay? So dear students, this is what a measure of central tendency is. And what are the characteristics of central tendency? We've learned that as well.